Hello, fellow Wednesdayers. It is TGIW. Thank God it is Wednesday for new comics. I do. Oh man, I hope everyone's doing okay out there. I've been self quarantined, isolated with very few trips out. I am working from home, so it's probably starting to show. Hair don't really care, just does whatever it does in the morning or after a shower. This is probably getting a little bit gross. Maybe at some point I need to just have some self dignity and clean myself up. I guess. Um, I do have this week's books, but as many of you have probably heard, this week might be the last week for the foreseeable future for new books. Most of the diamond distributors are closed down. Books cannot cross the border. So this may be it for New Comic Day for a while. But does that does not mean it is the end of TGIW, because New Comic Book Day can be Old Comic Book Day. I am not worried about having stuff to read. I have, this is no exaggeration, 9 long boxes of stuff that needs to be read, in addition to various trades and things like that. So while we don't have new comics coming out, what I will do for TGIW, I still want to keep on a regimen of reading, to keep that up, and this is, I suppose, a chance to get caught up on some stuff. I will talk about what I plan on reading for that week from my archives, from my I can't call it a to read stack, because it is not a stack. It is not a stack of books. It is a shelf of long boxes. Well, a shelf and then some additional long box on the floor because there's just so much. So that is the plan for the near future. But today we will go on as normal. I'll start with the book of the week for last week. Giving it to Fantastic Four number 20. This was basically the epilogue to the last arc, where I forget what it was called. But where they visit the other planet, that it was actually the source of the radiation and their powers and all of that, and the lady came back. Sky came back because she was Johnny's soulmate or whatever. This did a great job of just kind of putting a bow on top of that entire package. Like that 6-issue arc was awesome. I loved it. It was just this sort of quintessential Fantastic Four fun, and edited in a good place. And this did more just to wrap things up. There's in the previous issues we saw where Ben came to terms with, like, oh, he's always been blaming Reed for the situation, and now he understands that it's not his fault. So he kind of has that heart to heart with Reed and say, hey, I forgive you. This wasn't on you. It was this other thing, which is really sweet. But at the same time, Reed to himself is like, you may forgive me, but I don't forgive myself. And like, it was really, really good. The bringing in Sky into the team was really good. The way that, like, what her living situation is going to be, her dynamic with Johnny, where he is like, I don't know, he's a ladies' man, right? He's not the kind to really. He's not known for wanting to be tied down, and that really shows. But towards the end of the issue, it's like, oh, they're actually kind of sweet on each other. It was just it really brought everything together. It was just a really great issue. So for this week, I only hit one of my 2 comic shops. The one that has the drive-through. The other one and I'm trying to avoid that sort of contact by going into stores physically if I don't have to. So that stuff will have to wait. I'll have to get that when I guess things are over, or at least died down, and maybe when new comics start coming out again, it's gonna be a big load of stuff to get. But all right, so Wolverine #2. Again, this is kind of I did add this to my poll. I did actually enjoy the first issue of Wolverine. It did a fairly good job of being separate from all the other X stuff. This is the only X book that I read. My concern was that it was going to be a little too tied into all the other X stuff. There is a little bit, and they're talking about Krakoa, and I guess there's healing pods, or there's some sort of plant or something that's going on in the main X universe that's kind of hinted at here. But I get enough context to kind of get it, so it's fine so far as a standalone book, that's what I wanted it to be. I needed it to be a standalone book. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 104. 104. And the continuing struggles of living in a mutant town, all these new mutants around, and how does that sort of this town itself is sort of under quarantine. They're kind of locked off, and the politics involved, especially with old Hob, and he's kind of back to his crooked ways. Kind of seeing like, yeah, old Hob, you always flew this banner of, no, I only care about mutant kind. I'm not a crook. Like, well, now you have your mutant kind. You're just kind of being a crook. So, you were that sort of all along. Revenge of the Cosmic Ghost Rider. This again has been good. I haven't not enjoyed a Cosmic Ghost Rider story yet. This is Ghost Rider's getting his soul back, and it appears that it might be a trick. Legion of Superheroes. Legion is one of those DC teams that I always get. I always follow when it comes with a new book, because it is, on one hand, it is not tied to deep DC lore, but at the same time it is. It's tied to its own deep DC lore, without necessarily being tied to all the other DC nonsense. And that's usually why I can jump into Legion pretty easy. My knowledge of the DC universe is better than most, but I'd say it's a combination of, it's not good enough to get every little tidbit, but it's also, I don't think it's that good. I don't know. It's interesting, but it's not. I don't know. I don't like how bogged down DC is with itself, and Legion usually escapes that, and so that's why I usually get Legion books. That is still the case here, but I don't know if it's really that good. It's too Bendis-y for a Legion book. What was that? Might have been the last ongoing of Legion of Superheroes, like in 2000 something. What was it? Was that Wade? Mark Wade? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I want to think Mark Wade had a run of Legion. Oh, it was so much fun. It was so good. This has not got to be fun yet. This has got to be Bendis back to his old tricks of talking heads. Like, that's not what I need. Like, you have such a diverse range of characters and powers, and you're just revolving around basically the same 3 or 4 talking heads. But that book is to step it up. It's like, that sort of thing is okay for some books. It's not what I want to see in a Legion book. Ravencroft 3. Going deeper into the mysteries of Ravencroft, what still lies there, the inmates, not the inmates, but villains running the asylum. It's been an interesting read. Curious to see how it keeps going. Justice League Dark, getting back into the rot. Abigail Arcane, the last we heard, was the one that was the not the leader, the Avatar. Avatar is probably the Avatar of the Rot. Where before it was Anton, her uncle Anton Arcane, who really should be the Avatar of the Rot. Like having like the Rot is sort of it's the evil of the of the red, the green, and there's the Rot. It's kind of like having Johnny Blaze be the king of hell, right? Hell is the bad place. We have a good guy running it, where it's evil, but I'm gonna keep it in check. That could only last for so long, and one in like story wise, like, or I suppose realistically, the good guy can only handle the bad place for so long. But also story wise, like, okay, that sort of thing is played out. Let's give the evil place back to the evil guy, or person or whatever. So bringing the Rot back into things, we haven't seen it in a while. So it'd be curious to see exactly what the state of the Rot is at this point. It's going a little bit out of control, so it makes me think that maybe Anton is coming back. Marvel Snapshots. It's an anthology series, but it's a little bit different. I really like the first one, the Namor one. So the deal with Snapshots is it's taking it's old stories. Not old stories as in stories that have been written already, but it's stories that take place in the past, but predominantly from the viewpoint of ancillary characters. Like the Namor one was from the viewpoint of Namor's girlfriend back in the Golden Age. So we're getting sort of the ground eye view of what it's like to live in a world with and around superheroes. It's a really cool idea. Just one for I love stories that take place in the past, and the perspective part of it is really cool. Like the Namor one, the Submariner one was really good. Really enjoyed it. Detective Comics 1021. So this is the second part. I think it's the second part of this Cult of Two-Face thing, which is interesting. I'm curious to see how the dynamic of Two-Face and Harvey are really playing out in this cult thing. Two-Face is one of those characters where there's not a lot of consistency to him. I understand he's Two-Faced. There's not supposed to be consistency to the character, but there's no consistency in his inconsistency, right? It should be the same type of inconsistency across different writers and stories, but he's never really been that way. Is Two-Face and Harvey, are they just sort of melded into one? Is it a schizophrenic thing? Does one have control, another not have control? Is it one that's just like it's the flip of the coin? Or he can just kind of go one way or the other at any time. It's not really set. Some writers will write them as two distinct split personalities, and some will write them as just sort of schizophrenic. Can go one way or the other at any time at a drop of a hat, but it's still the same core personality. Both ways are fine. It'd just be nice if it was decided how his psyche is. Like, what is that psychosis of his? How is he actually prescribed? Schizophrenic or split personality? Like, what is it? But anyway, the first part of this seemed like it's going to be an interesting story. ForceWorks 2020, bunch of deathlocks coming at these guys. And so it's interesting to see how that turns out. And then the last issue of Curse of the White Knight has been a great story with Azrael. Interesting spin on the Wayne family and who they are and who they aren't, I suppose. Him revealing his identity. Again, I hope this isn't the end of what they call it, the Murphyverse or something, the White Knight-verse, or I don't know, they call it something. But I hope there's more of this in this universe, because I've really liked both of the books, and we'll see how this one ends. It seems to be leading to a climax of Batman is possibly not going to be around anymore, one way or another. So I'm curious to see if it's even open to having more entries. And let's see, that's it. That's all the stuff for this week. What's really tough is that I get Amazing Spider-Man. Actually, the majority of my Spider-Man stuff, I think all of my Spider-Man stuff is at the other shop. So I'm not getting any new Spider-Man stuff. So like my Scream and The Amazing Mary Jane and Amazing Spider-Man. I'm not getting those or whatever's come out for the last 2 weeks, which bums me out because it's freaking Spider-Man. But we'll get by. Plenty to read. So that is it. Like, comment, subscribe. Again, we'll be back next week. I guess we'll have one more book of the week, and then it's going to go to celebrating Old Comic Book Day, and we'll see what I dig out and decide to knock out of the back stock. Until then, and make smart decisions. Stay safe. Stay inside. Stay healthy, and be well. We'll see ya. This video was brought to you by Titan Comic Pressing. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Titan Comic Pressing LLC.